When you're living your Dharma and you are saying things in the way that only you can say things, and you're showing up in the way that only you can, and you are using your unique experiences, your unique personality, your unique lineage, and all of the gifts that your grandparents gave to you, the supply is one.
There it is.
And the demand is infinite. And by the way, we don't all need to be for everyone. You know, you're here to be for your people. And some of us are meant to reach millions, and some of us are here to really connect with our communities. But when you are living your Dharma, you never have to worry about my job being replaced, or am I going to make money doing this? And the universe has your back.
Right.
So when you're on that highway, you go on cruise control. And you meet the right people at the right time who say the right thing. And before you know it, you're 10 steps ahead and you're in the back seat.
Peace and riches, blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. Peace and radical blessings to all of you, and thank you for tuning in to Take Back Your Mind. I am Michael B. Beckwith, founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center and your host of Take Back Your Mind, where each week I'm honored, privileged to have a guest in which we have great conversation. And the guest that I have, generally in some way, shape, form, or another, is helping other people as well as themselves take back their own mind from the mental debris, the sea of mental garbage, the fear, the doubt, the worry, the trauma, unhealed woundedness, whatever the case may be, so that one can tap into their unlimited nature, so that the mind can be an avenue of infinite potential, and individuals can begin to live their Dharma. They can begin to live and activate their highest potential, being a spiritual being, having a human incarnation. And so today I have Sahara Rose. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
I was on your podcast.
Oh, best conversation ever.
That was beautiful.
I re-listened to it 7 times.
I listened to it a couple of times myself.
It was really good.
Wow, that was pretty
profound.
Good. Well, let me tell you a little bit about her, and just in case you don't know. Sahara Rose helps you embody your fullest expression. She's a spiritual teacher and a musical artist who's been called a leading voice in the millennial generation by our friend Deepak Chopra, who wrote the foreword for her 3 books. You got him to write the foreword for 3 books? That's great. She hosts the Highest Self podcast, which has been the #1 spirituality podcast in the U.S. for the past 7+ years, with over 45 million downloads. She loves tackling life's biggest questions and matters of the heart in a way that's fun, grounded, and relatable. She's also the co-founder of the Highest Self Institute, a premier coaching certification school. And as a musical artist, she creates music you feel good about getting stuck in your head. Because sometimes you get some lyrics, you say, where did those lyrics come from? But with her music, you're going to like those lyrics getting stuck in your head because they're powerful, affirmative, life-enhancing. She combines fresh Afro beats with vibey Middle Eastern melodies. This is Sahara Rose. Welcome to Take Back Your Mind.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. Give us a little of your backstory, what you have gone through to be here today. I mean, obviously we don't have all day, but let people know a little bit about you.
You know those moments that really shift your life? I'll start with one of those moments. So I was 23 years old, and at this time I had gone through really bad health struggles. So my body, when I was around 21 years old, started to shut down, go into perimenopause. So I was going to many different doctors who prescribed me tons of prescription medication and told me essentially I would have to be on hormone replacement therapy, antidepressants, all these things to function. And that brought me on a journey of self-healing, just becoming obsessed with learning everything I could about myself, which eventually brought me to Ayurveda. Ayurveda being the sister science of yoga based on the mind-body connection. And through studying Ayurveda, I realized that what was happening in my body was related to what was happening in my mind.
Right.
And I was disconnected from, first of all, my feminine energy, hence why I stopped getting my period. But I was also this archetype is the air archetype. So I was very in the mind, always moving, always traveling, just being on our phones. We have all that air energy. So because of that, I lacked that grounding, that sustenance. So as I studied this ancient wisdom and began to apply it to myself, both through diet, meditation, yoga, I began to heal myself and sharing my journey on a blog that I had at that time called Eat, Feel Fresh. And 2 years later, got my period back, found myself in vibrant health. And what I wanted more than anything was to share this wisdom with the world through a book. And I had never met an author in my life. I knew nothing about the book writing process, but I knew even intuitively then that this had happened kind of to me for a greater reason. How you speak about it's never to you, it's for you, it's through you. And I just could feel that then, but I had no idea what to do. So I just started writing the book and writing and writing and writing. And any money that I would make, I would give it to editing the book and graphic designing the book and trying and trying. And my family, who are immigrants from Iran, were not pleased of this.
With this shift in your career?
No, they were extremely scared. How are you going to make money doing this? What is Ayurveda? This isn't even a real science.
Right.
And, when are you going to get a normal job? And, as I was going deeper in my spiritual path, they're like, we're worried for you. Like, you need to go to a mental asylum.
Right.
Talking about like spirits and shamans and all these different things. And I remember this one moment specifically. So my dad was very like MIT scientist, atheist, facts only, and pretty strict in his communication. So I could hear him, first towards me, he was just like, you're a complete loser, you're a failure, and I want nothing to do with you. And then yelling at my mother of, you raised this daughter like this. That's not my daughter.
Wow.
And just had disowned me at that moment. And I realized then, I went downstairs to my childhood room and I looked around at all of my toys and I'm like, what was this for? Why did they tell me you can do anything? And here I am trying to do something and I'm dead to them. And as I was
dead to your mother as well?
She was really unhappy. She hadn't cut me off in the way that my father had. So in that moment, just like crying on the ground, I just felt this wave of first what just kind of felt like numbness, but then it was this feeling of like a cutting of a cord. A cord of always being that little girl who wanted the acceptance, who wanted the pat on the back, who wanted the you're doing it right. And because I went to the drastic point of being disowned by my father, I realized that I have no one to live for now but myself. And that was my moment of freedom, of liberation, of I don't know how this journey is going to unfold, but I am just going to trust that I will continue to take the next path and the next step that shows up. So I had a friend who was teaching a yoga retreat in India and said I could co-facilitate with her. I had enough money for a flight to India.
Right.
Got to India. I was living in a hut, Michael, for $2 a night with rats in it.
Right.
Mosquito net every single night with a tin hut, no electricity or anything like that. But to the point that, I would hear the rats on my tin hut and sometimes they'd fall on my mosquito net and I would have to take my sandal and throw it up at the mosquito net to try to like slingshot them away. And they would like try to take my underwear into the walls, like that level. And I grew up in Boston, a really like nice home, but I was even willing to live through that if that's what it took for me to take the spaciousness to first really figure out what my dharma, what my purpose is, and find my own sense of self outside of the voices, outside of the need for approval. And I wish I could say, and then I wrote a book and here I am, but it was a journey of 2 years of, moments of complete like courage and faith and knowing it was all going to work out, and moments of doubt and ups and downs. And flash forward and we can stop at any moment. Eventually I did write multiple books and forwards by Deepak Chopra. And it wouldn't have been for that moment of emancipation from approval from someone outside of me that if it wasn't for that moment, I wouldn't be here today.
You're giving like the kind of a proverbial way we grow, pain or insight. And so you went through the tremendous pain, first of all, physically and emotionally, found Ayurvedic medicine. And then you were abandoned by your parents, particularly your dad. So that meant that you had to actually find something within yourself. And many people don't do that. Many people are still living as a puppet on the strings of somebody else's agenda. But because of what you went through, you cut those strings even though it was debilitating, even though it was disheartening, because we all have an image and a fantasy about our parents loving us and all of that. And in the middle of that, you found yourself. And so when you look back on it now, you see that it was happening for you and for the people that you get to touch. I mean, so many people now. So is there any reconciliation with your family at this point? I mean, do they see you as successful now? You've touched millions of people.
It's been really interesting because it actually wasn't until the process of me writing the story in this book, Discover Your Dharma, that it came full circle.
Mm-hmm.
So, I feel one of the hardest things, and I'm sure many of your listeners, they want to write books, they want to share their stories, they want to speak on stages, but other people are involved in their stories.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we share it when someone else is involved? And that was the hardest part of this, because I don't care about my own, but them, and out of respect for them, and I would go back and forth of I guess I don't need to include my story. It's fine. I can just do kind of universal truth. Yeah. But then other times that I would really write everything that happened, and it would be very cathartic. But I'm what's the right line here? And I realized that if I again tried to wait for their permission and their approval of the edit, it would just never happen. So, I actually sat with a lot of elders, and I would have them, elders, grandmothers, and I'm what would you feel if your daughter were to write this?
Right.
And I wanted it to be respectful of the parents' experience, which you very much know, while also being true to my story. And a few months before the book came out, I actually sat with them and shared with them. And, actually it was my mother who was more disappointed, just because of the family structure,
and
especially in Persian culture, of you don't share your stuff. Everything's you got to keep up with the Joneses, make sure everyone thinks things are going well. So she was actually quite disappointed and well, we sent you to summer camp. Why don't you write about that? And I'm you know what? I love that you sent me to summer camp, but the thing I'm the most grateful for was this.
Yeah.
I'm the most grateful that this happened, because I wouldn't be here without it. Love sailing, but it was that moment that I'm here talking on the podcast about, and I feel it's hard for parents, you want to do everything right, but it's sometimes those moments that the intergenerational conditioning comes up, Top of that, my family coming from Iran, everyone in my lineage was.
Were you born in the States?
I was born in the States. My family fled from the Iran-Iraq War and revolution. So, my grandmothers were both in forced child marriages to my grandfathers. No woman in my family before me has worked, had a career. So it's amazing.
So you've broken a whole lineage.
Broken a lot.
Just
I got samurais on both hands.
Right. So you mentioned your mom. What about your dad? Was he disappointed, or how did he feel?
Interestingly enough, he was a little bit more, I think it's the cut off energy of it. It was just whatever, not reading into it. So, they both definitely respect what I do. I wouldn't say it's well, actually, here's the amazing thing. I was just sharing with you that I went to the Sacred Valley in Peru, and a lot of my journey there was around healing the mother wound. And the way that I even felt disconnected from the mother archetype within me, because I always saw mothers in my family had to self-sacrifice, never had their own dharmas, never got to have a sense of freedom. And so the ways I suppressed that energy within myself, and then through coming in right relation with it and realizing that my mother was the one person in my life that loved all stages of me, even the fat little girl within myself that I have a hard time to love. My mother was the one that loved that, and that really restored our relationship. And this is in the past month, she found a Persian spiritual festival in the forest of Canada with all Sufi music, yoga, and meditation, and her and I are going for a week camping there together.
Wow.
So I'll keep you posted how that goes. So it's in process, guys. It's not a quick fix.
Right.
And there's been lots of conversations, but one thing is I keep bringing them along in my journey.
Right. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You didn't just cut them off.
Exactly, because it's we think it's easier too, but then you have the pain of that, and our families are God. That it's to love someone is God in human form, and I feel our Western culture, sometimes is very quick with our cutoff game, and
and canceling people.
Yeah, exactly.
The cancel culture.
Exactly, and we can't cancel our parents. We are them, and I can see the consciousness operating within her, which is coming from a place of love. It's coming from I want to protect you, and this is how I know.
Even your dad, he wanted to make sure you were safe. You had a great career, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can remember one time, this is a long time ago, we dealt with a lot of cash, and I had money for all of my bills to be paid. I was young, my 20s, somewhere in there, and my dad was driving down the street, and I had lost my money. So I said, Dad, I need to borrow, it was a little bit of money. He was an attorney at the time. And he said, I don't have it. I said, what do you mean you don't have it? I got to pay these bills. What do you mean you don't? He said, I don't have it. And he drove off. And I said, what? He doesn't have it. And I remembered at that moment, I said, I am never going to ask him for anything again like that. But which developed a strong independence in me. Mm-hmm. So I never became a borrower of anything. Mm-hmm. If anything, I'm a lender, mm-hmm. you know. And so a number of years later, I told him about how much that really helped me, the fact that he wouldn't give me any money when I needed it. And he said, I never did that. I said, you did. You were driving down my street, and I asked to borrow some money, and you said you didn't have it. He says, I would never do anything like that. He totally reframed the whole event. Then this was recently. I was in meditation.
This is a real therapy session, guys.
I was in meditation, and suddenly I saw that he meant I don't have it on me. You know, it was like a total reframe, because back you didn't have all the things we have now, Venmo and all that stuff. I said, wow, he probably didn't mean that. Anyway, it healed another layer of something. Mm-hmm. But because he said no, it helped me.
Your understanding of the experience at that time was exactly what you needed.
It just cut off me looking to him for anything. It didn't mess up our relationship or anything like that, but it's like I'm not that person in my family. So I understand. I mean, it's not to the depth of what you just described.
But we live like that. We're living for someone to tell us we're doing it right.
We're doing it right, and I'm going to help you, and all of that. So let's talk about a couple of things. One, you talked about your feminine nature. Mm-hmm. And I know when you're talking about feminine energy, you're not necessarily talking about gender. You're talking about an energy. Break that down for us, and then I want to get into this a little bit too.
Yeah, so I love comparing it to Shiva Shakti energy, which we talk about in Vedic spirituality, which is sister science of yoga as well. So Shiva is our masculine consciousness. Mm-hmm. So it's our ability to be in stillness, to be the witness, to observe, to hold the container. So it's like the container within which Shakti, the feminine energy, dances, experiences life, connects. So our Shiva consciousness, masculine consciousness, is the aspect of us that does, analyzes, computes, shows up on time as much as possible for the podcast, and gets the thing done. We need to have it. But then our feminine energy is we show up and we're both like, what are we going to talk about? Let's just see what's meant to come through. And that's dancing in the feminine, dancing in the unknown. And, I feel a lot of the traditional spiritual path of what we've learned about has been more of even the spiritual masculine consciousness of like, be in the mountains like a monk, zero desires, fasting, abstaining from all worldly relationships and things like that. And that's the path. And that is one, the path of the aesthetic, but there's the path that we call tantra, to weave with, to be with all, which is the feminine path, the path of the heart. So to see children, family, dancing, singing, music, as
Sufi.
Exactly. Sufi wisdom, many African cultures, indigenous cultures, really being under the sun, joining hands, telling stories, coming together and seeing that as a spiritual experience. And I feel for so many of us, our masculine has had to only adapt because our school system trains us to be that way. Sit still, don't ask questions, get things done. They've
follow the rules.
Exactly. They've indoctrinated us. And now we are remembering, and even I feel in universal consciousness, there is this greater shift towards feminine energy that we're seeing now, even with technology such as AI. It's actually allowing us to be so much more creative than we've ever been. So it's an invitation for us to connect to that part of us that you mentioned earlier that's limitless.
Right.
And that's where feminine energy can come through.
Right, absolutely. And so have you seen evolution?
Absolutely.
In our society?
Have you?
Of course.
It is crazy how quickly we are evolving. The conversations being had, conversations like this were like, you got to be in the 90s bookstore. I mean, you were already there. You had your dreads though, but like
I had my locks.
Exactly. It's the secret. You're like, what is that? And even that, it was like cutting edge. It was like controversial.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I was called to a conference one time to speak, but I didn't realize till I got there they would called me there to attack me.
Oh my gosh.
Right in the middle. I said, what are they doing? And I said, oh, I got it. And I was able to just absorb what they said and give it back to them in a way that kind of made them look silly, But yeah, it was controversial at that time.
And people like yourself and Deepak were often called to these debates where it was to prove that spirituality is not real. Whereas now there is this shift, and in Vedic spirituality, we call them yugas.
Yes.
We call them around 2,000 year cycle. So we have been in Kali Yuga, era of darkness, which has been war, ego, power, greed, materialism. We are seeing the apex of that.
Right.
We are moving into Sat Yuga, era of truth.
Yes.
And that's why I feel the internet is here to support us.
Right.
You know, conversations like this are here to support us. And there's just this general shift in our density, that we are becoming less dense. And when I say dense, I mean less focused on just these earthly desires and more open to the higher chakras, higher states of consciousness, to even invite conversations like this. And I feel when we open that up, all of a sudden, all of these universal ideas that are waiting to come through.
Right.
Because ideas, like you always talk about, and we know they're not from us, but
Right.
they choose us as the vessels to come through. So all it takes is for us to sometimes set aside the personality, the wants, the fears, the things that we're dealing with, and open ourselves up for God, universal consciousness, to come through so we can be the vessels. And that's ultimately what living your Dharma is about, being the vessel for which source consciousness chose you to be and what is needed for the evolution of humanity through you.
Absolutely. This is a great teaching. If you're just tuning in, this is Sahara Rose. And Discover Your Dharma is one of the books that she has written. And you've heard her story of her personal healing. I think it's very, very powerful. And what she's just mentioned, as we talk about from time to time, is over the last 10, 20, 30 years, there has been that which has been peripheral is now central. You know, even the sciences have caught up to the mystical teaching. Science and spirituality are now married again. They divorced back in the middle.
They got back together.
They got back together. And so the science is simply the language of mysticism in the language of science, whether it's epigenetics or whether it's the quantum field. It's all speaking of this one vast consciousness that's omni, that's everywhere present. And they were all here to reveal it according to our unique pattern. And so this whole shift, I've said over the years that we're slowly moving from the John Wayne swagger to the Dalai Lama smile. You know, we're moving from that intense, hyper, toxic masculinity, individualism, to what you're describing as this more feminine energy, which is open heart space. We take the journey from the head to the heart, which can be a long journey for many people. Sometimes it's shorter, depending on if you become a practitioner of the teachings. And so now we are moving out of that old age. We have the remnants of the old age still happening, and the death of it, which is very loud. Very loud. People taking sides, polarization, hate, wars, etc. But many of us can see the other side. We can actually see the rise of the feminine. We can see the rise of peace becoming popular again, love becoming not just sweet sentimentality, but actually the most powerful presence that exists. And words like that would used to be syrupy. You know, he's a peacenik. Oh, he's talking about love. But that's power. That's the real power of the heart. And so you've synthesized that in less than 5 minutes.
And there's so many ways. I think we're all saying the same thing. It's just, you know, and it's so incredible to see all these different ancient civilizations from we were just talking about Peru and, you know, Sufism, the Ashanti kingdom in Africa, the Han, like they all realize the same universal truth, which means it's not coming from us. They didn't learn it. It's coming from something beyond us.
Right.
We just get to be still enough to remember.
Right. The indigenous cultures have been caretakers of the information. And then as we grew technologically, but not keeping pace in consciousness with the technology has been used to suppress the energy, suppress the feminine, suppress the energy so that people can be more controlled. Because we were talking about this earlier, if you create a state of fear and disenfranchisement, people are easily controlled. But once fear is no longer a big bugaboo, and you're not living to not be afraid. Freedom, creativity, open-heartedness, generosity starts to flow, and we're beginning to see that now. I mean, you have a very large podcast, and people like yourself, I may have a spiritual community. You know, I like to say that we are the reporters of the new paradigm. We're reporting from what everyone can't see yet, but we can see it. And when you turn on the television, those are reporters from an old paradigm. They're reporting from the carcass of something that's dying. So we're both in the same space, same time, but in different dimensions.
Yes.
You know, so you're carrying a frequency of the new. Feminine energy. You want to say anything more about that?
Well, I love that you brought up dimensions because I feel there's a lot of fear around the state of the world, right? Like, where are things going? Things feel worse than ever, but we can see that we're all in the same world, but we're all in very different dimensions and very different realities. And the invitation is for people to start doing that deeper inner work, start reflecting on who they are, what makes them come alive, what they're excited about, and noticing the synchronicities and where they're guiding them. You know, a lot of people see angel numbers, but it could be, for example, I'll just share one. I wanted to bring you my book and I forgot. And I go downstairs and I just hear the valet guy talking about a book to someone else. And I'm like, okay, thank you for that reminder. You know, go back upstairs, get the book. Exactly. Its source is always speaking to us all the time through little words we hear in the song, through the piece of the conversation we picked up, through that little thought we had, but we just are so gross in our worldview that we don't hear the subtleties. And the beauty is when you start to follow that path has your back. You know, it's always guiding you somewhere. It's these little breadcrumbs, and it's meant to feel good. It's meant to feel exciting. And I always say, like, when you follow the excitement, it takes you places that you could have never imagined before. You know, in my own journey, when I first, actually that book I tried to write, I was rejected 30 times, 30 different publishers. All told me, no, it's never going to happen. And long story short, I was then hired. One of the editors wanted to find an idiot's guide to Ayurveda author. So I went to the Barnes and Nobles and I read every single idiot's guide book, wrote the table of contents, wrote the first chapter, and within a few days I was hired to write now this book.
The dummy book.
Yes, exactly. The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda book, which is like a 450-page text. They call it Idiot and Dummy. It's not. It's a serious book. You know?
Well, it's one of the ancient ways of healing on the planet.
Yes, exactly. And so, but then in that experience, I was like, I wanted to write my Ayurveda book. But the opportunity was to write this Ayurveda book.
And look how many books you read to do it.
Right.
You got all this information synthesized in your awareness.
Exactly. And had I not put my all into writing that book, a year later, when I saw Deepak Chopra on stage, and I was a stranger who walked up to him on stage. I don't even know how I got this close to him. And I sent him that book, and he was blown away by the way that I had been able to simplify it. I would not have these forwards by Deepak Chopra. So I say this because sometimes we have the big image of what we want, and then Source guides us to the necessary steps to not only have that manifestation, but to be able to hold it.
Right. No, that's powerful. Powerful. Now, talk to us about discovering your Dharma. Break down Dharma for people.
Yeah, so your Dharma is your soul's purpose. It's the big reason why you're here. And I like to think of it as a jigsaw puzzle that we're all in. And we are all a very specific part of this puzzle. So I like to say it's you in action. You know, it's how you are, how you show up. And it's in less than a career, it's more of an energetic frequency that we have through everything that we do, through your books, your podcasts, your teachings. It's always, you got the Reverend Michael essence to it. And everyone has their own magic sauce. Now, something so lofty, it's like, okay, now how do I find it? You know, I have a lot of tools, but one of them I'll share is called the Dharma Blueprint. So it's 5 categories you put together. So the first category is your Dharma Archetype. So are you the entrepreneur, the artist, the teacher, the visionary, the researcher, the nurturer, the entertainer, the warrior, or the activist? So these are the 9 archetypes I have. There's a quiz, dharmaarchetypequiz.com. You can discover yours. That, to me, understanding archetypes in general, I love archetypes, but when I was like, I have no idea what my Dharma is, I could start to see myself in these greater archetypes and be like, well, I'm not totally that, but I have these kind of gifts and skills. So
and it's not linear.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can be a part of a few of them.
Yeah, so you're very much a visionary, a teacher, you know, but even you're entertaining too. I'm gonna give you that one. Artist.
People think I'm a comedian sometimes.
You are. I'm laughing this whole time. So that's your Dharma archetype. Whereas a Tony Robbins he's got a warrior energy to him, visionary, but a warrior. A Joe Dispenza's got a researcher. Same with Deepak Chopra, a researcher energy. You know, and you're all teaching around spirituality, but different. Marianne Williamson, activist. Yes. Right. So we have different archetypes.
Yeah, I'll mention all my friends.
Yeah.
I was just with
the crew.
Tony. We just did something in Germany together. Not on the stage at the same time, but we were the 2 international people that were.
And how beautiful you're an Oprah nurturer.
Yeah.
You know, what do we love about her? Her ability to listen. Ask questions, be present. So just starting with even just your Dharma archetype will help you see yourself in a greater way. The next thing is you're going to look at the mediums that come through you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you love to write? Do you love to speak? Do you love to plan events? Do you love to create spreadsheets? And get specific. If you love to write, is it long form? Is it short form? Is it blog posts? Is it, captions? There are so many ways to write. So the more specific we can get and see all the different mediums that we seek to express our Dharma, it gives us some clarity. The third thing is, what are some obstacles that we have overcome or helped someone else overcome? So for example, my health challenge, that was something I then overcame, that I was not a medical doctor, but I was someone who personally overcame that thing, and I was sharing my own journey. And sometimes people want someone that's closer to them.
And someone who's actually experienced a healing.
Yes.
For real.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think, well, I'm not, a PhD expert in the topic, but, I could sit here and be like, yes, I have my PhD in anxiety. I have done a lot of research on it. I've never experienced it in my life. I feel bad for you guys, but here's some papers on it, as opposed to someone that's like, I still wake up anxious every day.
Yeah.
And, some days are better than others, but here's what helps me. I want to learn from, if I was a mother, the mother who's been there. I want to learn from the person who's been there. And so your obstacles are your path. They are your soul's unique curriculum to train you to embody that Dharma.
Yeah.
So then we look at our excitement. And a really good practice that you can do is write a list of everything you're excited about. So, and it could be like 30 things. Like, I'm excited about, Reiki and shamanism and AI and gardening and, just all the things. It could be totally random. Then from that list, start to put in categories. So you might have a category of healing. You might have a category of technology. You might have a category of events. You might have a category of this. So you're starting to notice these greater categories that are exciting for you. So what are the podcasts you're listening? I'm going to guess spirituality, personal development is a theme here. What are the conversations you want to have? What are the Google searches, the Chat GPT searches? What are those things? Because that, I'm sure you've seen in your life, the parts of your Dharma were things you were just really excited and curious about a few years before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very enthusiastic about learning, period.
Yes.
And very enthusiastic about making a difference in the planet. I mean, even when I was 12 years old, I wanted to make a difference on the earth, even though I didn't know how I was going to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so powerful. And it's always being of service to humanity through our highest form of joy, becoming our highest form of service. So the last category are our superpowers. What are the things that come naturally to us that people might compliment us on? And sometimes we receive the same kind of compliments that we think everyone just gets this. But if someone always tells you like, wow, you have such a way of making me feel seen and heard. We don't sell that to everyone. I definitely don't.
Right.
We sell that to people people say what they mean, or wow, you have the most incredible dinners at your house. They're so well thought out. Or you are so organized. I love seeing your mythology around things. Or you have such a great visual eye. You're such an artist. Start to notice those things. Maybe write them down. And also think about things that just come easily for you, Maybe you're really great at having deep conversations with people. Maybe you're really great at synthesizing complex information and making it simple. Maybe you're really great at connecting with animals. There's so many different things that we don't realize these are our gifts.
Right.
So then you put together these 5 categories. So your Dharma archetype, your medium, the obstacles you've overcome or helped someone else overcome, your excitement, and your superpowers. You're going to put all 5 things on a piece of paper, and you're just going to look at it. And just it's like seeing your soul on a piece of paper right now. For some people, ideas start coming. For some people, you put on your fridge, keep coming to it time and time again. And I find that you start to be able to fill in the gaps of now how you can put your Dharma in action. And the beauty of this practice is it changes, it evolves. Different stages and seasons of your life, different archetypes come online, different superpowers are activated because your Dharma is always guiding you to something new.
Absolutely. You did mention something I think is important, that your Dharma doesn't necessarily mean your career.
Yes.
You break that down a little bit. I think that's because people, particularly in the West, they want to have a job or a career. That's kind of their focus. I want to have a career. I want to have a retirement program. I want to have enough money. But this is different. Your Dharma is different. It's the reason you've come to the planet, which may or may not be connected to your present job or present career. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find there's different stages of it as well. So when we're on that Dharma discovery journey, so I have these 5 stages. And the stage 1 is just realizing you have a Dharma. Most people aren't quite there yet. Most people, if you say, do you feel you have a sense of purpose? They'll say, no. I mean, to eat, to live, to survive. Right? Most of us are still in that consciousness. And as we talked about, it's slowly moving. So that's just stage one, just having the awareness, the question. If you're here, you're in this, you're past stage one, but maybe send it to someone, you'll trickle them into maybe stage two. So just believing you have a Dharma, believing you have a purpose. Then stage two is self-improvement. How can I be my best self?
Right.
Now that brings us to most of the personal development stage.
Right.
How can I train my mind, my body? How can I get better? And some teachers are more focused on this, like a Tony Robbins is very much personal development work.
Absolutely.
And it's a very necessary stage that we're in. So most self-help, biohacking and things like that. But then you get to this point that you realize that you are not a mind and a body to improve.
That's right.
But rather a soul to know.
Speaking my language.
And that brings us to stage 3, which is the spiritual awakening of realizing I don't have to hack and perfect every single thing. Where's the goal? Do I get a gold star, perfect digestion? What's the point of
Am
this?
I going to heaven because I've eaten the right?
Exactly. That constitution, my skin's so clear. Like there's something more, And so that stage 3 brings us into the spiritual awakening. So for some people, they get really into astrology. For some people, it's past lives. For some people, it's meditation. And it's almost like coming to Disney World, honestly, because you're like, whoa, hypnosis. And, there's so much I can do here. And it's fun and overwhelming. A lot of people in their spiritual awakening have those dark nights of the soul, which are those moments where you have to relook at everything in your life and see. And by the way, guys, we go through these cycles time and time again, Yeah. And so in that spiritual awakening, there can be a sense of overwhelm. And a shadow side of it is there can be a sense of us versus them. We have to wake up the sheeple.
Right.
We are the ones, wake up, remember your power. And it's coming from a beautiful place, but it's still that separation. And there can be this, like, I need to learn everything spiritual and have all the words and the jargon and things. But then there comes this point that we focus, what actually matters in my life? What can I actually integrate? What, we can know about all our Pleiadian starseed families, but it's like, and how do I get along with my partner? And things like that. Right. And we start to notice the tools that actually work for like people coming to Agape every week. That's now their practice.
Right.
That brings us into stage 4. We're in Dharma development. We're now developing our Dharma. So you may find something that's really interesting for you. You're committing to it.
Right.
The energy of devotion.
Right.
Which is necessary. And I feel a lot of us, we're operating from that place of discipline. I have to be disciplined, which is coming from someone outside of me, the parent. Devotion's coming from the heart. So to be devoted to, whether I feel I'd love to coach people. Okay, can I actually learn how to do this? Can I actually sit with people? Can I practice this? Writing a book, sit day by day.
Right.
Speaking on stages. Can I speak to my yoga studio, once a month and start doing that? Can I go on Instagram Live and to be in practice of things? Now, through being of practice, we start to hear ourselves repeating the same things, telling the same stories, realizing our unique way of expressing this thing.
You find your own voice.
Exactly.
Right.
And that brings us into stage 5, which is Dharma embodiment. And that is when we're living our Dharma. And a beautiful thing happens is we are now being ourselves full time. And that is often
I knew
when
you were going to say that.
Exactly. So that's when it often turns into the career. So it's quite challenging for us if we have a 9-to-5 job that has nothing to do with our Dharma. And then we are, realizing we're these lions trapped in cages, quite hard. However, to jump and quit our jobs to find our Dharmas, it's a lot of pressure, So I say go through this journey. And when you feel you're at a place, there's always going to be a little bit of a leap, but the leap doesn't have to be 300 feet, it can be 30 feet. I'm not going to say 3. It's still a leap.
It can be incremental.
Yeah, exactly. And so I find, and for some people, it's different. For some people, they like having the separation of their career. They like having, a stable job where they feel like they are living in alignment with their Dharma, and maybe on their weekends, exactly. They have a book club they love to do. They host events and things like that. Whereas some people, it's getting in their way of doing it full time to have another job.
Right.
And it's bringing down their energy, and they're so stressed out after work that they can't. So it really just depends on where you are. And I feel there are many jobs that we can still work that are in alignment with our Dharma.
Right.
Doesn't mean we all have to be entrepreneurs.
Right.
I feel our Western world makes us feel that.
Absolutely.
But we can work in team and be living our Dharmas.
Right. Sometimes I'll tell people that the job you have is actually financing your Dharma. It's financing you doing what is necessary for you to make the leap. So it's not like the job is bad. It's actually financing what you have to do. And then the universe kind of pushes you into a leap or a step or something, or becomes so small here that it's time to leave. Or sometimes you can hold both for a while. But ultimately, you, as you said, you become yourself. And then when you become yourself, you'll vibrate. You won't fit because you'll be too big and you'll be pushed into another domain. So sometimes it's dramatic, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But we have everything we need within us to make that next leap.
Yeah, and even the like traumatic experiences, they're always there to serve us.
Right.
So I like to think of your Dharma as, we're all born on this highway. We're all born as children living our dharmas, like the things we love to do as children. So if someone's also confused, what did you love to do?
Right.
Were you the kid that loved to paint and create and
Before
play
we forgot.
imagination? Exactly. And we can even look at that in the doshas, the Ayurvedic archetypes. So that creative kid is Vata, the air energy. So likely your dharma is going to have something to do with creativity. So maybe you want to work in marketing. Maybe you want to work in arts, music, something like that where you're technology, you're using your imagination. Were you the fire child? So that's the one who was playing competitive board games, going outside, wrestling. You always needed a goal. Well, getting into business, into law, into finance, into sports, fitness. These are things where you can channel that energy.
Right.
Or were you that child, the earth sign, Kapha, which they want to sit with the adults and hear what the adults are talking about, and they love to play house and, and so maybe coaching, therapy, holding space for people, nursing. These are all great ways of doing so. So we're all born on this highway living our Dharma, and we're meant to be on cruise control towards our Dharma. It's just society has all these exits. You'll make more money doing this.
And distractions. Yeah.
Your parents will be proud of you if you do that. Right. Everyone from your town does this. How do you expect you're going to figure that out?
Right.
So we get off on these exits, and often we see everyone from our school, our hometown has gone off on exit. We're the only ones still on the highway that we're like, if I don't get off, maybe I will be stuck here.
Yeah.
And it's like going through, imagine your Dharma's on the other side of the open ocean and all you've seen are waves. You don't know what's on the other side. So most of us, we get off of an exit. Now the universe responds in karma. So one of the definitions of karma is bounded action by the universe. So the karma are the barricades on the highway, which aren't out to get you, but they're here to support you.
Right.
But they start with tap, tap, tap.
Right.
Something's off.
Right.
You're feeling a little anxious. Something's feeling a little bit off. But most of us, drink more coffee. Don't listen. Keep going. And then the universe is like, okay, you're not going to listen. Punch, punch, punch. Anxiety, panic attacks, situations in your life showing up. Again, we hear things. Life's tough. Get a helmet. Suck through it. Everyone hates their job. Accept it.
Right.
So we keep veering off that exit. The universe is like, okay, I'm really gonna have to shake you up. And then it's that on your knees moment, the dark nighted soul getting fired by the job, something happening that you have no choice but to either redirect and make a U-turn and find your way back on that highway, or live in a series of unfortunate events, which unfortunately a lot of people keep choosing that.
Right. And they find ways to mitigate the pain they're in.
Yes,
with exogenous stuff,
distraction,
right?
Because then our dimension that we're in is surrounded by other people doing that. Because someone on the highway is not hanging out with someone way down here in Karma land,
Right.
But the people who can go to Karma and have that dark night of the soul and come back, they are the most powerful drivers.
Yeah. And I've been in the dark night of the soul, and it's nasty.
Oh yeah.
It's depleting. It's totally cut off. It appears to be from the source. But when you come out of it, you are more you. Everything that's not you, and all the facades and all of the should-bes are dissolving, and then your meant to be shows up. It's very, very powerful. I don't wish it upon anybody, but I wish it upon anybody.
Yeah, I hope your heart doesn't break, but it's going to be the best thing that ever happened to you.
It's going to be the best thing that ever happened. Like, your parents.
Yes.
You went through a divorce.
Yes.
Very heartbreaking things.
Yes, but, and those things, while they were happening, were like God is against me. It feels like that in that moment, especially my divorce, finding out about my ex-husband's infidelity. It felt I was already spiritual. I was already living my Dharma. Like, how could this? No. This doesn't make any. I already have the podcast, guys. This is part of the plan, you know?
I'm not planning for this.
Exactly. This is not on brand for me. But, you know, when you're in stage 5 of living your Dharma, anything that is not in alignment falls away.
It falls away. Oh, absolutely.
And it was like, okay, you're living your Dharma in your career, in your friendships, in your home, and all these different things, but the relationship was not there.
Right.
And since you're not doing anything about it, we're going to do something about it.
Right.
And if it wasn't for that, nothing would have caused me to leave the relationship. And that was an opportunity for me to do all of the deeper shadow work, which is going into my childhood, going into my ancestry, going into all of the things I would have never looked at without that opportunity, which led to the next iteration of my Dharma. And beyond that, I feel that these dark nights of the soul, they make us come alive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They give us more empathy.
It's radiant darkness.
Yes.
It's actually light. Yeah. Infinite potential.
Yes.
I'd have to do sound effects sometimes.
I like it. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's like space. Like that sound effect you did reminds me of like the shooting star in the darkness of space.
Right.
The seed in the darkness of the soil. Light can only come from the dark.
Right. It's where it comes from. Discover your Dharma, Sahara Rose.
We're discovering it right now.
Absolutely. This is Sahara Rose. This is a wonderful book. Discover your Dharma, a Vedic guide to finding your purpose. Host of Highest Self podcast. You can feel her energy. You can feel the enthusiasm. You can feel the embodiment of the teachings that she's lived through. She has a lived experience, and she's embodied something, and that embodiment is reeking with enthusiasm. I love listening to her. I love talking with her. She's great. Anything else on this?
I mean, what to us. That was a great conversation.
What else is bubbling up in you?
You know, it was really interesting because after my divorce, it was really hard for me to like read books, and I just started listening to music in a deeper way.
Oh,
and that's how my music journey started. Which we need to do a collab. By the way, I heard your song.
Yeah.
I went on a Bahamas girl trip. By the way, we were on a boat in the Bahamas. We just kept re-listening to your song again and again.
Was it the one song or 11 of them?
There was one song that we kept re-listening to. I gotta find it. You were like the infinite light of creation, and it was like so cheerful.
I'm gonna do another with my son.
Okay, we need an album.
Okay.
Do you rap?
Well, that's what they say I do when I'm speaking.
You are rapping.
Yeah.
That's what it's poetry.
Yeah, I just kind of let it flow, and then it adjusts itself to the audience that I'm speaking to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But your album came out in March.
It came out in March.
We still say album?
Yes, we still do some albums. It's called My Body is an Altar, and it really was the lessons that I learned through this dark night of the soul. And it taught me so much around seeing myself as a sacred site, you know, and only being treated as such. And one of the affirmations I continued to tell myself through this, you know, in this process, I didn't know where I was going to live, what I was going to do. There was so much uncertainty. And when I would be anxious, I would tell myself, trust, flow, surrender, let go.
Trust, flow, surrender, let go. Yeah.
So we can sing it together.
Trust, flow, surrender, let go.
Trust, flow, surrender, let go. Trust, flow, surrender. And then there's this part. I'm the one I've been waiting for.
I'm the one I've been waiting for. And that's true. So that was just released, what, March?
That was released in October. And do you know what's crazy? So I'm part Ethiopian, and I've always been very drawn to Afrobeats music, and I just put that song out. It was like the first song because I produced the music as well, and it was this whole new side of me. I had to start back in stage one.
Because we're talking about your Dharma now, because you're creative, you're musical.
Yes, I have the artist archetype in me, but it's so easy for us to get stuck in the thing that we're already good at. You know, I know I could write a book. I know I'm good with words, but I'm like, producing music, like how, you know, I'm so drawn to it. So I started to produce it. I would put affirmations on, and other ones like, be the vibe, then you'll magnetize, don't you compromise. And
right.
Things like
You're
that.
rapping.
Exactly. and I rap as well. So this is why we need to do a collab for sure. But that song is Trust Flow is played in radio stations throughout Africa now.
Wow. That's beautiful.
It's crazy. And it just started with something I was telling myself in my head. So it's just the power of these teachings that we are learning for ourselves. You know, your pain is never in vain. It's always for something greater.
Right.
And so now I'm always like, source, use me. I'm here to show up. I'm here to be of service. And anything I'm going through, I know I will one day be able to find the gems and crystallize it and share it with other people, whether it's through this conversation or a song or a little word that I say. And then when you're in it, you know, it's kind of like being awake within a dream.
Right.
You're like, oh, I guess this is the new memoir.
Absolutely.
This experience. And then you realize it's always preparing you for what is next to come. And I feel so many of us are here to be way showers. And I know you attract a lot of people who are that. They're seeing in you what they have in themselves.
Absolutely, totally. There's so many students that break out of Agape,
yes.
and teachers and entrepreneurs, and it's great to watch that legacy happen.
Yeah.
So what's the name of the CD, the album?
Yes.
The offering, the project?
The record album, no. It's under Sahara Rose, My Body is an Altar, and I have lots of new music and music videos coming out, so that has been a beautiful artistic creation. And then my school, Highest Self Institute, where I train spiritual life coaches, Dharma coaches, embodiment coaches.
Right. Does your dad like your music?
No, we have not showed him that, especially not the music videos.
That's too tantric for him.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm going to look away and pretend that never happened. So money.
You're Persian.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Put your veil on. Stop.
Yeah. But that has been the biggest challenge, actually, of my music career. Has been this is more my mom in it of like, what? You're never going to get married if you post this. I'm like, I've been married. It's not what's cracked out to be. Like, you know, like,
I've done that already.
Exactly. Like, I made you proud. Can we move on? You know, and but like witnessing that consciousness again of like trading your liberation for love.
Yeah.
You know, if you're too big, you're too bold, you're too expressed, no one will love you. So stay small where you can be contained and understood. And,
right.
And it's just been interesting, literally removing the veils and stepping into this expression and doing it from a place too. I feel with social media, it can be tricky of like, what's for me, what's for others. And it can get confusing. And just to continue to come back into my own, like, I'm making all this music so I can listen to it when I'm old. Right. You know, you get to listen to, but it's really just for me. Yeah. And that's everything creative. Just do it for you and bring people along.
You're talking to yourself.
Exactly.
Always.
I wrote this book because I'm like, I need to like sit down after this and reread it.
That's true. You know, when I wrote Spiritual Liberation, they wanted me to do a 5-step thing on how to get rich or something. You know what I mean? And I said, I'm not going to do that. I got to write what's in me. So if I pick it up 20 years from now, I have to live with this. And so this is what you've done here. I looked through this. It's good. You get some good stuff. Deepak did a good deal by giving you a forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's been incredible, and I feel so many of us have books within us. We have stories and messages, and it's that, like, who am I?
Yeah, right.
You know, like, who am I to share this? I'm not XYZ, and that's our shadow work right there.
Right.
You know, that version of you think you need to be. It's like, sometimes when people are like, how do I help people? I say, think about who you were just 3 years ago. That version of you 3 years ago and the problems you've overcome since then.
Yeah.
Because now you know your way on the other side. And you're close enough to it that you remember what you thought about before you slept and the little things that showed up. But you're also not triggered by it. You're not in it right now.
Right. I invite people at times to look at all those places in their life where they overcame something and to recapture that energy and to live in that energy of that gratitude, whatever that feeling tone was, to hold that particular state. And then the universal law will match that state and more doors will open because you're not in the survival aspect of life. You're not into being in control. You're not into being keeping your same personality but trying to change the world. That state transforms your entire being. Yes. And that's the work we're doing.
And I feel for a lot of people that big, you know, you said you wrote that book, 5 Steps Around Money, but
I did not write that book.
Oh, you did not write that book.
Yeah.
But I feel for so many people, it's the money piece that they're like, well, how will I ever make money living my Dharma? So they stop themselves from even going on the journey without realizing that you living your Dharma is your most abundant self. Right. Because the supply, if you think about just economics, like supply and demand, if you're just repeating what you learned, what you were taught, essentially you are replaceable. You know, you're just saying what
you're in the status quo.
Exactly.
You have to bust out. Exactly.
So the supply is infinite, right? So the demand goes down. When you're living your Dharma and you are saying things in the way that only you can say things, and you're showing up in the way that only you can, and you are using your unique experiences, your unique personality, your unique lineage, and all of the gifts that your grandparents gave to you, the supply is one.
There it is.
And the demand is infinite. And by the way, it doesn't, we don't all need to be for everyone, you know? You're here to be for your people. And some of us are meant to reach millions, and some of us are here to really connect with our communities. But when you are living your Dharma, you never have to worry about my job being replaced, or am I going to make money doing this? And the universe has your back.
Right.
So when you're on that highway, you go on cruise control. And you meet the right people at the right time who say the right thing. And before you know it, you're 10 steps ahead and you're in the back seat.
Right. You're living in a field of abundance. You're demonstrating it. You're living it. You're saying it. You're dancing it. It's demonstrating itself. It's manifesting itself. And it's beyond your imagination.
Yes.
It's on the next
places you could have never got. I never could imagine. I was watching The Secret when I was like 12, 10. Could have never imagined I'd be here with you. You have this beautiful shaved head now, so it looks great.
and I'm 20 years younger.
Exactly. Reverse aging. And it just keeps getting better, right? Life keeps getting better.
Absolutely. All of the wondering. I mean, I stay in wonder, but all of the wondering about what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, that doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
Life shows up in a most beautiful and magnificent way. And here we are today with Sahara Rose. Isn't this beautiful?
This conversation keeps getting better.
Listen, tell them how they can be in touch with you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing the space and having so much fun with you. And it was an honor to have you on my podcast as well, and just opened so many eyes, including my own. So I appreciated the podcast called Highest Self Podcast. And you can find my work on Instagram. I am Sahara Rose. My website's iamsahararose.com. And to take that Dharma Archetype quiz is dharmaarchetypequiz.com. So thank you so much for having me.
There you have it. And you can still get this book, Discover Your Dharma, if you're a reader.
Or listen to it on Audible.
I was getting ready to say that.
Or I can rap it for you.
Or you can rap it for you. Because this is the day, and you'll go into full sway, and then God will have its way throughout your life. There'll be no strife. You won't look back, because all you see is that the universe has your back. And you will flow with the go and be in flow motion.
He's still going. He's still going. Okay. There's no slowing.
We're just starting to go. Okay, this is Sahara Rose. We're having a great time. We want you to feel the flow of the glow. Let me stop.
And don't let go, because there's going to be more.
But we want you to feel the joy, because you know what? Joy is your intrinsic nature. It's just been blocked. You don't have to go get joy. You are the joy. And so we want you to take back your mind so that the universe can actually shine through in a way that's beyond your imagination. Thank you for tuning in to Take Back Your Mind. Thank you for being here with me with Sahara Rose. We'll see you later. Remember to subscribe and tell your friends. Cool? You got it? All right. Peace and blessings to you. Richest blessings to you. And this is the moment in our podcast, Take Back Your Mind, where we actually meditate. We go from philosophizing to practicing. We go from conversation to actually doing the thing. It actually allows us to wake up, to discover our Dharma, to wake up, to discover who we are, to wake up and remember that each of us are light, the light that lights up every being that comes to the planet. It is really good as a beginning point to believe these wonderful things that we get to teach and have conversations about. It's beautiful, because believing is a step towards practice, and practice is a step towards insight, and insight is a step towards embodiment, and embodiment is a step towards living the life you are meant to live. So we go from having a conversation about it, which is inspiring and encouraging and uplifting and teaching and educational, beautiful, to actual practice, because it is practice that allows you to actually have the insights to embody what you believe. So let's do that. I invite you, if you're sitting in a chair, to have your back erect, straight, not rigid, just straight. Your feet on the ground. And today, let's have your hands facing downward on your lap as a sign of embodiment, as a sign of you not going to heaven, but a sign of you remembering that you're bringing heaven here. You're embodying it and living it and bringing it here. So I invite you to close the outer eyes. I invite you to tap at the space between your eyebrows. Just tap it. And just say right now, I am willing to see without my physical eyes. I am willing to see without my physical eyes. Just establish that as an intention. You feel the sensation there. You're opening yourself up to seeing with consciousness, not with just your physical attributes, not with the sensorium, but that which came before the sensorium, your consciousness. Now imagine for a moment that there's a beam of light emanating from the bottom of your feet all the way to the very center core of the earth. Just imagine it. Beam of light from both feet and your being going all the way to the core of the earth. And as this is happening, you're saying to yourself that you have access to all transformational knowledge born from human experience, because it is all in the earth. It's in the noosphere, the mental atmosphere of the planet. Any insight that has occurred to any human being based on their human experience, you have access to. Now, as the beam of light is not only going to the center of the earth, the beam of light is now moving up the base of your spine, going all the way up through all of the chakras, up through the top of your crown chakra, out into infinitude. And you're being reminded that you are a spiritual being having a human incarnation, and that you have access to divine wisdom, transformational knowledge, creative intelligence, not born from experience, because it's intrinsic within you. You become available to have insight, expanded awareness. So here you have the dual way of unfolding. You have access to all knowledge born of experience, and you have access to all intelligence emanating from your spiritual nature. Spiritual means eternal. And so we sit. Now, that beam of light, it's within the very center of your being. Notice it. And it's emanating in all directions. It is omnidirectional. So that you're having a realization that you are the light. The light that lights up every being that comes to the planet. Now sit in this awareness. Light emanating to the core of the earth. Light emanating from the crown chakra into the field of infinitude. The light from the center of your being moving out in omnidirections. You are the light. Sit in this light for a moment. The light of intelligence. That's what you are. The light of love. That's what you are. The light of beauty. That's what you are. The light of peace. That's what you are. The light of total abundance. That's what you are. Sit in this right now. This awareness that we are surrounded by light, that we are radiating light, that we are the light, we're luminous light beings. We break free from this hypnotic spell of separation from life itself and realize that we are the incarnation of a divine life, uniquely created to reflect and to reveal the infinite in a way that has never happened before. The vibrational word is spoken, let there be light. Let there be love, let there be beauty, let there be intelligence, let there be abundance everywhere. Let all our needs be met by this awareness that everything is working together for our good. Let us feel this happening right now, right this moment, right this instant. And so it is. And so we let it be. As you open our eyes, I look at you and I say, now, so be it. Be that frequency. Let the universe, so presence through universal law, match that vibration. That you'll be shocked and surprised at the good that shows up in your life. Peace and blessings. I appreciate your letters and emails that you've been sending in, but also the notes you're sending on the Instagram and on the website, thanking me for Take Back Your Mind. And I thank you for your support. As I've said before, if you want to support Take Back Your Mind, support the sponsors. The main sponsor is the Agape International Spiritual Center, agapelive.com. We have a Facebook presentation, an Instagram presentation, a YouTube presentation, and a website presentation. You can donate to the sponsor at agapelive.com. It's one way that you can donate. It supports the podcast. Second sponsor is Nutrarise.com. You go to Nutrarise.com, those three lines up at the top, you touch that line, and you'll get Adaptozen. Adaptozen are my products. The Super Green Superfood Greens and the vitamin D3, K2. Both extremely good for your health, your nutrition. You support the sponsors, you're supporting the podcast. Have a beautiful, and as I like to say, a bright day, luminous day, because you are a luminous being. Peace and blessings. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in taking back your mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind, and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.